Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the League Racing TV YouTube channel for Round 9, the penultimate round of the first season of the Esports Masters League, League 1 Division. My name is Aidan Carter, otherwise known as Carmentis. I'll be taking you through proceedings on a Wednesday evening, as per usual, and joining me once again in the commentary box is now the League Racing TV channel manager, Mr. Luke Etheridge himself. Luke, how are you doing this evening?
I'm very well, thanks. Good evening, Aidan. Good evening to everyone that's watching. Really looking forward to this race. Singapore, it's a track that can throw up pretty much everything. Wet weather, extremely possible. Two-stop strategies, one-stop strategies. The walls are never too far away. And it could be a championship decider in both divisions tonight. Cannot wait.
Yeah, I can't wait. Like you say, it's going to be a really, really interesting race in Singapore. Probably the most unique track on the calendar, you've got to say. One of the only street circuits we've had, incredibly narrow. Will be the longest race of the calendar as well in terms of time. 31 laps ahead of these drivers. Average lap time of around a 1 minute 39 in the race conditions. So, and that's even with it in being very dry conditions. Like you say, wet. It can be wet around this track. It is common for that to happen. So it's going to be a long one. It's going to be a race of attrition. It's going to be a race about keeping your attention at the forefront of your mind. You've got to be really on it throughout this race, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. Can't really relax too much. I think in terms of corners, probably some of the highest number definitely on a circuit, and 31 laps makes it quite tricky as well with 23 corners. It's going to be tough. We said tyre wear extremely high around here, quite difficult to follow, quite difficult to actually overtake as well, with the exception of the end of Raffles Boulevard. We're not really going to see too much overtaking around here, and as it is such a long race, it's all about being patient.
It is really, like you say, about being patient. It's going to be a really, really interesting race that we're going to see tonight. And like you mentioned earlier on, could be a possible title decider for us tonight. We go into this round with QVR in the lead of the championship, as they have been pretty much from the start. It has been a really, really good season for QVR, though they have come under a lot of pressure in recent rounds for that championship lead. Second in the championship at the moment is the XL Racing team. They are 41 points off the championship lead, only 2 points behind XL is the TTG main team. They are third in the standings, and most they really have been at the forefront of the championship kind of from the start. Beyond the top three in the championship at the moment, P4 is held by the International Racing team. They are on 182 points. They are only 4 points ahead of Leonis Academy, who have taken both of the wins in the previous two rounds. Clean Vigor Academy are in 6th ahead of Virtual Esports Racing in 7th. Vapor are in 8th ahead of TTG Academy 9th, and OWR rounds off the top 10. And it's, like I said, 41 point gap between XL and QVR coming into this round, and it needs to be a 48 point gap coming into the final round of the season for QVR to win the championship. Can you see QVR pulling it off tonight?
It's very possible. It is very possible. To be honest, I'm surprised it's as close as it is. Last time out, they looked like they were having a fantastic race in qualifying. I think both them and their academy drivers were right up towards the front. It just didn't go well for one reason or another. We'll have to see. Obviously, big news in terms of different teams. Leonis, Daniel no longer part of Leonis, and he's won the last two races, so that might be good news for QVR as well. M-Shot making a return, though, for XL, and he's won 3 races so far this season, more than any other driver in EML League 1. So if he takes a victory tonight, it's going to be very difficult for QVR to claim the championship. Cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult, like you say. Let's have a run through then the drivers that are going to be running for us tonight. We are waiting for a couple more drivers to join the lobby before we get going. So let's run you through who is racing tonight. So QVR, running with the two drivers they've been running for pretty much the majority of the season in Verstappen and Campbell. That is a very familiar running in that team. International Racing are supporting Scuderia Seb, who was on the podium last time out in Monza, and Rudy, who I believe is racing for the first time this season. Virtual Esports Racing are running Quicksilver and Jules. OWR are running Isotopic and Bear Remy. QVR Academy are running Dropia and Cortez on the front row in qualifying, I believe, last time out in Monza, did a really good job for the Academy team. The XL Racing team, like you mentioned, M Short racing alongside Zaldo, who usually is the reserve, but he's replacing Gary, I believe, for today. Leonis Academy is running LR Baby K and Zach. Vapor Esports is running MRL Russell and Vapor Hyper, I believe. Team TTG is running Perpetua Mobile and TTG Laser, and the Team TTG Academy are running Coreboy and Noisy. So those are the drivers to look out for tonight. And beyond M Short, obviously we know that M Short is going to be a real threat in this race, as are the two QVR drivers. Is there anyone else there that you think could throw a spanner in the works?
Yeah, I think around this circuit, it's one of those where I really don't want to write off anyone, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think Laser, Callboy, they're two drivers that have put in some good performances. It's going to be a Seb. He's been doing fairly well lately. Perpetuum, we know he's an extremely quick driver as well. Like I said, I don't really want to write out anyone at this point because there can be so many unknowns around a circuit like this.
Yeah, definitely can be. And like you mentioned earlier on as well, the winner from the last 2 rounds in Daniel running for Leonis Academy, no longer part of Leonis. So they are a little bit on the back foot this time around. They are currently in that battle with International Racing Team for 4th in the standings at the moment. International Racing Team have been on a real upward trajectory this season, haven't they? They started off as OSRL at the very start of the championship, didn't get off to the best of the starts, but ever since they've rebranded, they've just been on the up. And look, staring at a possible P4 in the standings now with Leonis on the back foot. Do you think that they could move into that P4 slot by the end of tonight?
It is very possible. They've even got a slight chance of securing that P4 slot and stopping anyone else getting there, but they're going to need to outscore Leonis by a huge margin. They pretty much need a 1-2 and hope that Leonis don't score any points. But yeah, that battle for best of the rest, they've just shown some more consistency lately. At times we've said obviously Leonis doing a fantastic job when Daniel was driving for them. Clean Vigor Academy didn't do too badly last time with Cortez, but them seem to drop a bit further back. VER, again, look quick on occasion, but unfortunately for them it is only on occasion, and that's why they're sort of dropping off that battle now for 4th position. But again, you'll want to just be focusing on consistency, I think, tonight. Just make sure you're keeping it nice and clean. Track limit penalties, always a bit harder to get on street circuits, although there is definitely a few places where you can run wide or cut corners. Definitely coming through the final sector, it is possible to do that. Just have to see who ends up coming out on top tonight. Expect it to be close, and as we said, Aidan, it will be the longest race. It's a bit of an endurance. If some of these people aren't really used to doing long qualifying sessions and a bit longer races, if it rains, expect safety cars, expect well over an hour just for the race. And when you consider that Monza last time out probably took about an hour for qualifying and the race.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a long one tonight, and qualifying of real importance around this track as well. While there are a lot of strategies that can play out here, being at the front of the field at the very start is going to be crucial to this race as well. Obviously, Singapore, very tight, narrow street circuit. The first 3 corners of the lap really do concertina you up the further you go through that section. So a risk of contact, especially if you're in the midfield here, is very likely. We've seen a lot of races, both in real life in Singapore and in league racing, where carnage can befall the drivers in the very early phases of the race. So look out for that. Look out for people trying to get to the front of the field as best as possible. Looking at strategies, though, which strategy do you think is going to be the most successful tonight? Do you think it's better to start on the front row and go for that one stop from the softs to the hards, or do you think starting outside the top 10 is going to be the better option?
I think as the game's developed, it has become more of a soft-hard strategy. What we see working for most of the drivers, at the start of the game, no one would have tried it. Everyone would have gone for the 2-stop, but I think that is now going to be the one that everyone goes for. Go for the soft-hard if you're starting at the front, and I think the fact that everyone's heading out to set a lap on the soft tyres, whereas normally, if drivers are going to want to start further down the order, they try and get into the top 10, possibly on the mediums. I think soft hard's definitely what we'll be seeing, but 11th place can be the quickest strategy, especially if you can hang in with those soft runners once their tyres start to wear.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to ride on board then with Verstappen for the QVR team. He's going to be the first person to take us through a lap around Singapore, the most corners of any Formula 1 track until we go to Jeddah this year in real-life Formula 1. This currently holds the most corners at 23, so a lot of corners heading before Verstappen here. Coming through the first sector, then through Turn 5 already, coming down Raffles Boulevard and up towards Turn 7 and the end of the first sector into the middle part of the lap. It's a 25.8 in the first sector, pretty decent first sector time from the QVR driver, as you would expect. Through 7 into Turn 8, a very tight hairpin. Constantina effect on the first lap here is very possible. Turn 9 and then up towards Turn 10. The Singapore sling was a triple chicane not that long ago, reprofiled into a fairly easy 90 left-handed corner. Now into another reprofiled section, the Anderson Bridge section goes onto the left-hand side of the bridge rather than the right side for a tighter kink here into the hairpin, trying to make for better overtaking opportunities. Now down the second of 3 DRS straights around this track, then towards the end of the second sector, Turn 14, a 101.5 in the middle sector for Verstappen. A little bit of a lock up there, but gets away with it as he comes up towards Turn 15 and 16 then. And now the corners come thick and fast in this final sector, the slowest part of the lap this is now, as he heads up towards Turn 17, 18, 19 and 20. A lot of corners heading these guys then as he heads underneath the grandstand. Passes Yannick, who's racing for VER tonight. That is him out of the way nicely. Up towards the final 2 corners of the lap then is Verstappen. Nice and neat so far, kept it well out of the barriers, wasn't pushing too hard, but it's a nice neat banker lap from the QVR driver, and it's a 32.9 to start off the session. A pretty good lap time from the QVR driver. Behind him on the track, his teammate goes 5 thousandths of a second faster, so the QVR drivers almost level pegging at the very early phases of qualifying. 32.9 though for a banker is a pretty good lap time.
Yeah, it's not bad whatsoever. Just to get a first lap in, they'll be fairly happy with that now. See who else is heading around the circuit. To see who's actually heading towards the end of the lap. Got Corboy, he's just starting a lap now. Betcham's backed off, I think, in the final part of his lap to do a 1:34.284. Maybe that's deliberate to see if he can go faster on a set of mediums.
That could definitely be possible. If you can get inside the top 10 on a set of mediums, that could pay dividends for you in this race later on. As across the line goes, I believe that was Drop, who's only 34.7. M Short coming up to the line now, derating well before the penultimate corner, but he comes up to the line. So 32.7. So he was matching QVR Verstappen, interestingly, by the end of the middle part of the lap, a 101.5, but goes 0.2 of a second faster in the final sector. So whether that's the case of M Short feels more hooked up in that final sector, or whether he's been able to keep the tyres in better nick going into the final sector. That's one thing to note. A lot of these drivers are going to be running very slow outlaps just to try and keep the temperatures down so they don't overheat that front right tyre by the end of the lap. So look out for that. M Short, though, to the front of the pile, as he has done so many times already this season.
Yeah, definitely. His teammate Zeidemer's gone into 4th place, a huge 1 second gap. So yeah. I doubt that's all entirely down to pace. I think a lot of that is, drivers taking it maybe a bit easy, but M Short deciding he wants to be fighting from the front, and if he takes that 4th victory of the season, it will be very hard for QVR to end up taking the championship tonight. I find it's not only front tyres around here. In that final sector, you've got to be careful on the rears as well. Quite a few traction zones through there, and maybe M Short's just got the car set better up in the final sector to get a bit more rotation out of that car through that middle sector. I mean, I think we're talking something like nearly half the corners are in that final sector of the lap. Very twisted, 90 degrees, not much chance for overtaking, so that could be where we see a lot of time gained in this qualifying session. Probably where we'll see a lot of Qs accumulating in the race, especially once those in the top 10 who are on old softs, once their tyres start wearing and everyone behind catches up.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing to note here as well was Cortez was on a lap, invalidates very late on in the lap and dives into the pit lane. We're through the first runs in the session now. Pretty much everyone has gone out for their first run in qualifying. Only 9 lap times on the board. Yannick as well was off the pace. He's running with no ERS at the moment. It looks like he's got a little bit more fuel in the car, so that lap time isn't necessarily representative for the virtual esports racing driver. So only 8 representative laps on the board at the moment. Just goes to prove that Singapore, with all the corners in it, it's difficult, A, to keep the car out of the barriers, and B, to keep the car on the road and not invalidate your lap time.
Yeah, I know I said street circuits are normally tracks where you don't see invalidations, but it was that final sector that caught a few drivers out. But I think some of it is drivers have backed off on their lap, and they may be thinking, right, I'll set a flying lap on the soft tyres if I can get every single corner absolutely bang on. If I can't, I'll back off, I'll quit the lap. There's no point starting 8th. If you start 8th, 9th or 10th in this race, you've got absolutely no chance of taking the victory. You need to be in the front 2 rows, I'd say, or outside the top 10 for you to have a really realistic chance of taking a win. And maybe some drivers thought, well, this isn't a good enough lap. I'd rather ditch it, just set a lap on the medium tyres, and then go for that alternate strategy.
Yeah, and of course as well, there's always the factor of possible weather interference in the rain. Some of these people may have gone onto softs knowing that they can get to the front, and other people may not be setting lap times because they think it might be better to start outside the top 10 in case of any rain. So that's always another thing to look out for as well. One driver who is about to start a lap on the medium compound tyres is Vapor_Hyper-LN4. I believe this is his first race of the season. So Luke, why don't you take us on a lap on board the Vapor driver on the medium compound tyres?
Yeah, just coming out that double apex left-hander to finish up his outlap then now. Heading towards the finish line for turn 1. Sticking to the left-hand side of the track. Be careful over the curb at 2 and 3. That's another part where you could invalidate, and you need to watch out for cars coming out the pit lane. 4, just a nice, simple little kink. And then into turn 5 where you really need to get a good exit. Get the car hooked up as you head down Raffles Boulevard. Flat through the kink at turn 6. One of the 3 DRS zones on this circuit, then heavy braking into turn 7 there, 80 mile per hour at the apex. Now it all slows down a bit, very tight right-hander, can be easy to just clip that wall, get over to the right-hand side of the track as early as possible for turn 9, watch the wall on the exit, and then the old Singapore sling chicane caught out Kimi Raikkonen in the first year in F1 and is now, just as Aidan said earlier, very simple left-hander. Hyper taking a lot of curb at turn 11 and 12, clearly got confidence in where you can put the car and avoiding invalidating track limits. Nice and smooth as he went over the Anderson Bridge and into the hairpin at turn 13. DRS open once more for the tight right-hander at turn 14. If you've realised you brake too late, make sure to go straight on. Don't try and go for the turn-in. You'll cost yourself time, maybe lose a front wing. Now it is pretty much 90 degrees central until the final couple of corners. Keeps it clean through 16 and 17. Under the grandstands at 18 and 19. Watch out for that barrier coming through turn 18. If someone hits it, it can move, and it might not be in the same place as it was the lap before. He's kept it nice and steady. Stays out of that wall on the right-hand side that has caught out so many drivers over the years. Very clean lap from Hyper, 134.038 on the mediums. Extremely good indeed.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you were talking about earlier on, people thinking they can get inside the top 10 on a set of mediums. At the moment, a 5th place on the grid. Of course, we're still a long way to go, and a lot of people still yet to set times on their tyres. And in fact, TTG Laser goes a 10th of a second faster, also on the medium compound tyres. So good laps on these guys, and considering how many corners there are on this track, only 1.2 seconds off M Short and 1 second off the QVR drivers is a pretty decent lap on the medium compound tyres. Obviously, the medium compound tyres do have a little bit of an advantage, maybe in the last few corners of the lap, because they don't struggle with overheating, but even so, brilliant lap times from these guys. More drivers on the mediums further down. Baby K for Leonis Racing is currently at the back, is currently coming through the second sector on his set of medium compound tyres. Both Vapor drivers, interestingly, have gone for the mediums. Russell in his first race of the season as well, coming through the middle sector. It was a 1 minute 2.2 from his Vapor teammate at the end of the second sector. Russell's gone a 10th quicker than that, so Vapor looking pretty decent at the moment on the medium compound tyres. Follow him on as he finishes off his lap. Pretty much everyone at the moment is out on the track setting another time in the session. I believe that was Bear Remy that's just come across the line to start another run. Here comes Russell then through the final sector. Looks like he could be challenging that 5th place on the grid at the moment. Can he get this final sector nicely hooked up? He's keeping it out of the barriers so far through turn 21. A lot of understeer, just keeps it out of the wall, but nicely done. And now into the final 2 corners, throws it in nicely up towards the line, and he does go into P4 actually, a 33.8, goes a 10th of a second faster than Zaldama, so a brilliant lap time there from Russell. Both Vapor drivers then on the medium compound tyres doing a stunning job in 4th and 7th at the moment.
Yeah, you can't have Russell in your gamer tag, I don't think, without being pretty decent at qualifying. Great lap from him. I agree with what you said about seeing the final sector times. I know we haven't got Taz in League One, but in Premier it'd be really interesting to look at how the final sectors for mediums versus softs compare to each other, just to see. I reckon the mediums would still be slower, but perhaps not by as much as you'd expect, given the amount of corners there are in that last part of the lap.
No, I definitely wouldn't expect it either. Just looking at Callboy's first sector time as M Short improves on a 32.5 now. Verstappen improves onto a 32.8, but M Short still holds at the front of the field at the moment. Was just riding as well with Scuderia Seb podium sitter last time out. Had a massive moment through turn 21 and backed off of his lap because of it. Callboy on the medium compound tyres. Interestingly enough from Callboy, he's about 4 to 5 tenths down on Verstappen in the first sector alone. So let's see what his middle sector is looking like. It definitely seems like the softs have the advantage in the early phase. A 1 minute 2.6 by the end of the second sector. Not quite up there where the other drivers on the medium compound tyres, but still looking to try and get somewhere close to the top 10. Baby K finished his lap on the mediums as well. Did a 34.4, but he spun coming through the final corner, and Callboy has just invalidated on the inside of turn 17, so he's not going to be able to set that lap time. Rudy's just started a lap on the mediums as well, so I was expecting a few people to go for the mediums, but pretty much half, if not over half the grid are trying to commit to starting on the mediums inside the top 10.
Yeah, it almost seems to be, with the exception of, I think, Zach and Cortez, if your first one's gone wrong, just go for a set of mediums, maybe. Whether this is a sign of whether we'll get any rain, I'm not so sure. Whether this is just a normal dry strategy. That's the interesting thing about Singapore. You never quite know what everyone is going to be planning with. Zach's invalidated a lap as well, and I imagine... No, actually, he does very late decide to dive into the pits. You do not want to be doing a second run on soft tyres, because if he'd have qualified onto the top 10 with 2 lap-old soft tyres, I reckon by the end of lap 1, he'd have been struggling to get the car around. We've got Rudy now, in the other driver in the international racing team. He's just coming around turn number 13 now, over the Anderson Bridge. We'll see if he can... Well, his teammate hasn't set a lap time either at the moment, so we'll see where he is relative to some of those that are on the mediums earlier on. I think he's going to be quite a way off, though, the 2 Vapor cars of Russell and Hyper.
Yeah, at the moment, it just look like this is more akin to a lap time we've seen from the likes of Perpetuum Mobile. Perpetuum then 11th on the medium and compound tyres. That's a little bit far off what we'd expect maybe from Perpetuum, who has been, when he's raced, right at the front of the field. Only 11th on the grid at the moment, so not the best lap on the medium compound tyres. Russell at the moment still up in 5th. We've also completely missed the fact that Isotopic for OWR has gone into 4th place by a very comfortable margin, 6 tenths clear of Russell, but still 3 tenths behind Campbell at the moment. But that at the moment would be by far OWR's best qualifying of the season if Isotopic can hold on to that. Rudy decided not to finish that lap on the medium compound tyres in the end, dived into the pit lane, and now we have pretty much everyone in the pit lane apart from Perpetuum Mobile, who is still out on the track, I think doing another run on the same set of tyres, but he's already a tenth and a half down in the first sector. We'll see what his middle sector is looking like, but you can already see the rear of the car stepping out there, coming out of the turn 13 hairpin up towards the end of the second sector, and he's still 2.5 tenths down. A 2.5 tenths down at that point in the lap, a 101.9 suggests to me that Perpetuum Mobile's time on the mediums would have been really strong, but he's clearly made a mistake somewhere in the final part of the lap.
Yeah, so maybe this is why he's carrying on. Maybe he knows he can just hook things up through this final sector of the lap, looking nice and clean so far. How much do you attack the curbs at 20 and 21? If you go too much on the inside of 21, you will hit the wall, and Perpetuum gets very close to it. Now it's just send it fully on the throttle, and this is a much better final sector. 5th position for him, less than a second behind Short, who set his time on the soft tyres. So Perpetuum must have had a huge mistake in the final sector. I think he gained about nearly a second on his previous lap time there.
He gained about 1.1 seconds actually, ended up 8.5 tenths up on his previous personal best, so that is a stunning final sector from Perpetuum Mobile. Without that mistake maybe on his first one, he probably could have gone into 4th place, but even so, 5th on the grid on the mediums, and by a comfortable margin, is a brilliant lap time for the TTG driver. At the moment, of course, remember, looking out for championship standings at the moment, QVR 2nd and 3rd, XL 1st and 7th, TTG at the moment with Perpetuum Mobile in 5th, their second driver Laser in 8th. His best time was on the medium compound tyre as well, so a real split in strategies into the top 3 teams. It seems both XL and QVR are committed to the soft compound tyres at this point. TTG very much trying to start on the mediums.
I think I said this last time around, I'm surprised teams don't split their strategies between the drivers. If I was TTG now, if I was Laser, I'd go out on a set of soft tyres and see if I can get myself right to the front of the grid. For XL, for example, surprised one of M-Short and Zydemer, probably M-Short, didn't try and get into the top 10 on the medium tyres, and one of the QVR drivers didn't, because then you're covering all scenarios. If there's an early safety car or something in this race, you might be able to get rid of the soft tyres for fairly cheap and be on a fresh set of mediums. If it's going to rain, let's say rain starts falling around, is forecast to fall around about lap 5 of this race, do you want to be on a set of soft tyres or would you want to be on a set of mediums? You're not quite sure, so surprised there hasn't been more split strategies throughout the field.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one as well, especially if there's a later safety car that would help out those that start on the medium compound tyres. You would want at least one of your drivers to benefit from that, so that is a good shout that both QVR drivers, neither of them have gone for something a little bit different. And you would expect with the pace they've got, the QVR could at least get one of the drivers, if not both of them, inside the top 10 on the mediums without too much of an issue. LR Zach currently out on the track. He's again going for a set of medium compound tyres, but a 26.3 for the first sector is not the best first sector we've seen so far from someone on the medium compound tyres. A little bit of a lock up into turn 8 as well. Very nice new livery this is, by the way, from Leonis. A little bit of an updated livery, looking very nice with that chrome effect red on their car as he heads down towards the Singapore Sling. See if he's much more committed in this middle part of the lap. Currently without a time, we've still got 6 drivers yet to set a time, including both of our international racing drivers at the moment, who are both back out onto the track on a set of medium compound tyres, interestingly. So we'll see where they can go to as that comes to the end of the second sector. 1 minute 2.2 is what we've seen usually for the medium runners. A 2.5 by the end of the second sector would put him at the moment around the lights of Vapor Hyper at the moment, so it's not been the best lap so far for Zach as he heads through the final sector. A look at the traffic he has got ahead of him. We mentioned the traffic earlier on in this final part of the lap. It's both Vapor cars directly ahead of him, and they're running it very fine to getting it to the line in time, and Vapor is actually stuck right on the racing line there on the inside of turn 20. Just about gets away with it, does Zach, as he heads up to the final corner. He might get a bit of dirty air. In fact, he does, off the back of Russell. Across the line comes Zach, only 13th on the grid in the end, so not a good enough lap time, and that is the risk you run with going for the mediums on the final run in qualifying.
Yeah, if I was him, I wouldn't be too happy. I think Hyper definitely could have got out of the way, maybe in between turn 20 and 21, but I think Hyper realised how close he was to setting a lap time. He would have run out of time. Checkered flag is out now. Jules comes across the line He's in 11th place on the medium tyres, so if he has got a fresh set of mediums left, which I imagine, can't see too many drivers having used both their mediums in qualifying, he might be able to start on a fresh set of those. Who else have we got coming there towards the end of the lap now? Rudy's just coming through the final sector.
Yeah, and Dropier's just crossed the line, only improved by 0.07 of a second, so not enough to gain him a place on the grid at the moment. The QVR Academy driver is in 9th.
Yeah, Campbell's gone up to 2nd place. Verstappen, he's coming around the final few corners. He's got the 2 international racing team drivers up ahead of him, so we'll see where they go. Rudy goes into 11th. Scuderia Seb, 2nd fastest on the medium tyres. Verstappen takes 2nd place, so it's looking very good for M Short to be the fastest. In fact, he's improving in the final sector here. M Short really wanted to lay a marker down.
Wow.
132.325, nearly 3 tenths faster than everyone else, as Isotopics had a crash in the final sector, just trying to improve on his time. I can't blame him for going for the soft tyres, because 4th place, really good position for that team, and you never know if anything strange happens early on, that could prove to be the right strategy.
It really could. Russell now for Vapor. Both Vapor cars, I think, will be the last ones to set times in this session. Russell then up to the line. Currently his best times on the mediums, and he's backed off because of it. He stays in 9th, and Vapor Hyper also backs off his lap as well. I think that's pretty much qualifying over and done with. Baby K, I think, yeah, Baby K has invalidated his run, so he's dived into the pit lane, and LR Zach at the moment currently 17th with only a 34.4. That is qualifying then over and done with. One other thing to note as well, TTG Laser was on a brilliant lap on the softs that could have easily gotten him 4th on the grid, decided to back out of it coming into the very last corner, and ends up 11th on the grid because of it. So he's clearly going for something a little bit different in this race, but it's M Short once again at the front of the field. QVR very close to each other, 2nd and 3rd. The top 3, big split though for the rest of the field.
Yeah, I mean, how often do we see half a second between the drivers 3rd and 4th on the grid in league racing? It's pretty much almost never. Noisy in 5th place, not bad for the Academy driver. So TTG, the Academy driver is actually the fastest driver of the lot of them tonight, with Perpetuum, he's 6th, Laser in 11th, and Cowboy down in 20th. And Cortez, a man who did a fantastic job last time out in Monza, was, I think, the quickest of the QVR drivers, hasn't set a time this time around, so he's going to be starting well down in 19th, but as with everyone else outside the top 10, he'll have that fresh choice of tyres.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting race qualifying. Like we said, it does play a huge part in the early phases, but strategies are king around this track, so we haven't got a clue how that is going to play out. You can already see, though, a real mix of strategies across the top 10. M Short then on pole by 0.3 of a second over Verstappen. Campbell in 3rd ahead of Isotopic in 4th. By the way, Beremi got 8th, so OWR by far their best qualifying of the season so far. Noisy 5th ahead of Perpetuum, who's the first medium runner. Scuderia Seb also on the mediums. Beremi 8th ahead of Russell 9th, also on the mediums, and Zaldama rounds off the top 10. Outside the top 10, we've got TTG Laser ahead of Dropia, Vapor Hyper, Rudy, Jules, Baby K, Zach, Yannick, Cortez, and Cowboy. Cowboy and Cortez not able to set a time in the session. So a bit of a truncated field, a big spread in the field there, well over 2 seconds covering the field at that point, but a real mix of strategies that's going to make this race very interesting.
Yeah, you've got to love it around Singapore. Obviously, at most circuits, this is the point where we start talking about what the weather's going to look like. It's pitch black no matter what here at Singapore, so we have no idea if it's overcast or clear. I was going to say sunny, but clear I think is probably the right term. LR Leonis, their academy team, way down the grid, 16th and 17th for their drivers, with a team obviously that's won the last 2 races, and the team whose main team's currently leading the Premier Division, which you'll be able to see at 8:30 with James Head and Dan Hoggard, hopefully. And this is a hopefully, because you never know with Singapore. Hopefully we'll be finished by 8:30.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we'll be finished by then, but if we get any sort of safety car in this race could go on for a long time. But buckle in, even though it's going to be a long race, it is going to be a very interesting one. A lot of split strategies throughout the field here. Could be some weather interference as well, and as ever, Singapore does throw up some crazy results. So anything can happen. But yeah, like you say, Leonis not having the best of qualifyings, 2 wins in the previous 2 races with Daniel. He's now left the team. Completely new lineup, I believe, for Leonis this time around. 16th and 17th, not what they would have hoped for. On the opposite side of it, though, while Leonis have dropped down in qualifying, OWR, shout out to them, currently 10th in the standings, have not had the season they would have wanted. 4th and 8th on the grid, by far their best qualifying of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And if there's something strange happens early on and they're able to get rid of those soft tyres for pretty cheap, it could work out to be an interesting strategy indeed. It is only those who qualified on the softs in the top 10 that have gone for the soft tyres outside the top 10, we've got an even split between mediums and hard tyres. Dropye, Jules, Zach, Yannick, and Cortez have all gone for the hards. And Laser, Hyper, Rudy, Baby Kea, and Cowboy going for a set of the medium tyres. So it's very interesting, and I think that says if there is going to be any rain in this race, it's definitely not coming before halfway.
Yeah, definitely going to be a little bit later on. The hard compound tyres are going to take a while to get into their working range, but the thing is around this track, we've mentioned it a lot in qualifying, but in the race, tyre temperatures here do skyrocket very quickly, especially on the soft. So we're going to see a lot of these soft runners coming in, probably even before lap 5 because of how quickly they go off. The hard compound tyres, by the time we get to about lap 8 or 9, the hard compound tyres will have swung from being the worst tyre to being the best tyre.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if any of those that have started on the softs are going for the two-stop strategy, which I think if you're having to pit around lap 5, you're pretty much going to have to, otherwise you're going to be a risk of punctures, even on the hards at the end of the race. They could easily gain 2 to 3 seconds on the car in front. Where you catch the car in front is so crucial around this circuit, because if you start getting stuck behind someone right on the exit of turn 14, so right as you pretty much enter the final sector, it's very difficult to pass anyone up until you get towards turn 1, so you can lose a lot of time stuck behind the car in front. You definitely need driver skill around here and skill at managing your tyres. Sometimes, though, with these strategies, you just need that element of luck.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those races where catching is one thing, but passing is another. That really is the definition of Singapore, and this alternate strategy that a lot of drivers are running, but it's going to be a very, very interesting race. M-Shot then once again on pole position, looking for another win, looking for Exile's 4th win of the season. Can he pull it off? QVR looking to steal the championship here tonight with 1 round to go, but they have got a lot on their hands if they want to pull that one off. At the back of the field, Cortez and Cowboy line up on the final row of the grid for QVR Academy and the TTG Academy team. Here we go then. Here come the lights ahead of the drivers. M-Short versus Verstappen on the front row. Lights are out and away they go. Looks a fairly even start. In fact, Isotopic from 4th on the grid looks like he might be the one that's made the best of the starts. He's looking down the inside. M-Short well clearing towards turn 1. No threat from the QVR drivers behind. Perpetuum actually on the mediums has had a stunning start from 6th on the grid. He's up to 4th place already. Passes his Academy teammate Noisy and also passes Isotopic, who after a good initial reaction drops on the inside of turn 1 and drops down to 6th place. Scooter Recep holds 7th. Russell holds 8th. There's a spin in the background. I think both the Leonis cars might have gone round at the back of the field. Yeah, Baby Kea and Zach have both gone round. I think Cowboy was caught up in the aftermath as well. So disaster for Leonis at the back of the field. Scooter Recep and Russell battling side by side into turn 8 to be the second of the medium runners. Russell sends it down the inside. There's a little bit of contact, but he gets away with it, and the Vapor driver moves ahead of the international racing driver and up into 7th place. Beremi runs 9th. Vapor Hyper runs in that 10th place spot ahead of Zaldamo, who's dropped on the soft compound tyres. Laser runs in 12th on the mediums, and further down the field it was both LR drivers and Cowboy that got caught up in that contact. I think Cortez as well. So not been a good start for the drivers at the back of the field.
No, Zach's got huge damage, which starting on the hard tyres is exactly what he didn't want. I imagine he'll now chase for a set of mediums and then use that same set of hards at the end of the race. Another thing we haven't talked about is even if you're driving for the same team as someone tonight, that's not going to be your pit stop partner who you're going to have to share a pit lane with. So if a lot of the soft runners want to come in early on, for example, let's say M-Short and Verstappen are in the same box, Verstappen's going to either lose a lot of time in the double stack or lose a lot of time just losing time due to how bad the tyres will be. But at the moment, M-Shot's had a fantastic start to this race. He got a brilliant getaway. Isotopic, I think, he got a fantastic getaway and almost he didn't want to get involved, I don't think, too much in that lead battle as I saw Campbell dropping down the field, but it's just the standard glitch I should be used to now after about 9 months of commentating on F1 2020. But yeah, an ideal start for M-Short, and I think QVR, they'll definitely take that with their drivers 2nd and 3rd and Zydemer dropping down the field. But Perpetuum's going to be the interesting one to watch. Probably by the end of this lap, he'll be the fastest man on track.
Yeah, he's had a brilliant start on those medium compound tyres. So crucial for him to gain places early on. Got past his Academy teammate Noisy, and that's worked out beautifully for him. And like you say, not long now until the mediums do start to become the better tyre in this race. Russell as well for Vapor having a brilliant start now. He's on the back of Isotopic looking for a way through. Further down the field, there was a bit of a battle there between Hyper and Bayeremi. I think Hyper's got the move done on Bayeremi and is up into, I believe that will be 9th place when the timing sorts itself out, because Cortez and Zach are still in the pit lane as as it stands. Beremi, though, dropping down a place. Beremi and Zaldama, then, they started 8th and 10th on the soft compound tyres, which is probably the worst places you can be if you're starting on the softs. Proves at the start already it's not worked. They both lost places and now are under tap from the medium and hard runners behind now. The lead hard runner, by the way, is Jules for Virtual Esports Racing, currently running in 13th place.
Yeah, not bad at all for Jules. I think he did actually gain a position off the start of this race. He gained 2 positions, in fact. Russell's already got a time penalty, so he's definitely pushing things hard on those medium tyres at the moment. I said in qualifying, if you're starting on the softs, you really want to be starting near the front of the top 10. If you're starting further down, you'll be wishing you were outside the top 10. It's true of this track, it's true of tracks like Bahrain as well, and China, all other ones. But M-Short, fastest lap of the race last time around. Verstappen was the second quickest man, and Perpetuum was the third quickest driver out on track. And I think soon he'll be thinking about whether he can start making some moves, but he's going to be stuck in a slight DRS train. And these 4 are starting to get away slightly from Noisy. And to be honest, M-Short, he's nearly broken that 1 second window to Verstappen.
Yeah, it's looking really good at the moment. Obviously, the dirty air will be affecting the QVR drivers behind, but M-Short at the moment, once again, looking very strong. I mean, at this point, are we surprised? He is already a triple race winner this season. It has been a great season for M-Short in particular and for Excel. Can he do it again tonight? Verstappen and Campbell still running solidly in second and third, but Perpetuum is breathing down their neck. Noisy then, a big moment out of turn 9 there for Noisy. Just lost the rear of the car, gets away with it, but you definitely can tell that split in qualifying has translated over into the race. The top 4 getting away. Noisy, though, for the Academy team, still doing a brilliant job. The Academy team for TTG have not had the best of seasons, much like OWR. They just haven't been able to fight at the front of the field. A big mistake there, though, from Russell coming through turn 13. Ran very wide. Has that given Scooter Risev the opportunity to go for the move down to 14? No, it hasn't. He hasn't been able to make the move stick on the Vapor driver, but the penalty already looming over Russell's head means that Scooter Risev is in a net 7th place as it stands. These guys as well have dropped Zaldama and Beremi. Zaldama's passed Beremi, who is really struggling on those soft compound tyres because he's now got Laser, Jules and Rudy right up behind him. So those soft compound tyres, at least for Beremi, while it was good to get him inside the top 10 in the race, it just hasn't worked out for him so far.
Yeah, probably took a bit too much out of them on his hot lap, and this is the thing about the final sector. He has got this entire queue of cars behind him as Verstappen, at the end of lap 3 then, into the pits. He nearly dropped outside of the DRS range, so wasn't going to gain anything from staying out on track. Zaldama coming in as well, so a driver from each of the top 2 teams in the championship into the pits. They should come out ahead of Cortez still. Hard tyres for Verstappen and hard tyres for Zaldama. It's going to be a struggle, I think, to get those towards the end of the race. So maybe another set of softs right at the death.
It could be very possible. Meanwhile, Perpetuum squeezed to the inside wall there, coming into turn 7 by Campbell, but he gets the move done, runs a little bit wide. Campbell's coming back around the outside of turn 8. He's going to have the inside line for turn 9, but Perpetuum should be on the better compounder tyre. Campbell's going to force him right up against the wall. Once again, we're seeing very aggressive defending from Campbell as he heads down towards turn 10. Still around the outside, Perpetuum's trying to fight it, and Campbell just runs him completely out of the road on the outside, holds onto that second place. But as has been the theme for the past couple of rounds, Campbell is very difficult to overtake, whether it's because of his speed or whether it's aggressive defending. Perpetuum falling foul of it once again. Will he ever run down to turn 14? Campbell's already out of ERS, and now Perpetuum looking to the inside line for a late lunge. Is always tapped the back of Campbell in the process. That's moved Campbell pretty much out of the way, and Perpetuum's up into second place. Aggressive racing between the two of them, very slight contact, and Campbell's been moved out the way.
Yeah, Perpetuum, I think he went to back off of going for the overtake, but he'd already got a bit too much overspeed and just tapped the back of Campbell there. All that battling has done from Campbell has cost himself time. Yeah. Maybe that was intentional to cost Perpetuum time as well, so that it gives his teammate a bit of a chance. We'll have to wait and see. M-Short now coming into the pits as well. Campbell is in. I think we might see a few others dive to the pits as well. So Noisy stays out. Perpetuum takes the lead of this race. How much of a gap can he build? Because those mediums probably still going to be quicker than the hards that Verstappen are on at the moment. Yeah,
it's going to take a few laps as all Noisy makes a mistake coming out of turn 2 into turn 3, and that opens the door for Russell beautifully then. Russell up into second place. He's past Isotopic somewhere and has now got past Noisy in the process, so it's 2 medium runners that lead the way at the moment. What can Perpetuum do? Like you say, when Perpetuum is in free air, he is lightning fast, but we have seen a few times this season where he struggles in traffic, so this kind of situation definitely suits the TTG driver. Meanwhile, Scooter Recep gets past Isotopic, who is just falling down the field at the moment on those soft compound tyres. tyres, trying to stay out a little bit longer to not get the risk of having a puncture later on, but at the moment it's just costing him heaps of time. He's down to 6th. Noise is now under pressure from Sed and Hyper, and they're all being caught as well by Laser, who's been freed up by both Beremi and Zaldimer pitting in this race. Further down the field, by the way, Verstappen's managed to jump M-Short in the pit lane, so that is very crucial for this race. Verstappen, by pitting a lap earlier, has got the move done on M-Short, but we already saw before that pit stop phase, even the first 2 laps of this race, that M-Short seemed to be a much faster driver on this on the soft compound of tyres, and Verstappen pitting at the end of lap 3, that is really risking it if he wants to take these cars to the end.
Yeah, and I feel like Verstappen has absolutely gone for it on his outlap. He's at about 27% ERS at the moment. M-Short's got about 50% more, so he's going to have plenty to battle with on the run down to turn 7 next time around at the end of Raffles Boulevard, so I won't be surprised if he takes that place back. But all that battling might allow Campbell to catch up to them, and I said battling would cost him. Campbell's now 3.5 seconds behind his teammate, and it'll allow Perpetuum to get involved as well, as Noisy gets out of the way, as does Isotopic, and I'm sure that'll be music to the ears of all of them, and that means Beremi's got to stay out on track. Isotopic gets a 5-second time penalty. That could be costly. Baby Kaya gets one as well, so I wonder if Baby Kaya has actually picked up damage at some point, because surely you wouldn't pit on that early on from the set of mediums, and he is having a front wing change.
Yeah, it's just been a disaster so far for Leonis. It just hasn't been the race they would have wanted. I think he was caught up in that early collision on the first lap with his teammate. I think just tried to continue on as much as he could. Just maybe couldn't get any further in this race. Zach currently running well down at the back of the field. Perpetuum then is your race leader. And on that last lap, Perpetuum was over a second faster than Russell behind. So Perpetuum absolutely flying at this point in the race. What he needs for his race now is for the likes of Verstappen and M-Short to start battling, or for Verstappen to start backing M-Short and Campbell up. Campbell is already 3 seconds behind our net race leaders in this race. The only other problem as well for the likes of Verstappen and M-Short is because they're on fresh tyres, the fresh tyre benefit around this track is massive. So these guys are going to catch this queue of cars that is kind of led by Jules at the moment in 6th place. It's a real queue of cars, 3 hard runners in that queue, 2 medium runners, Beremi staying out on the softs. But by the time that Verstappen catches this queue of cars, it's going to be incredibly difficult to pass, and that is when the likes of Perpetuum and Russell really need to pounce.
Yeah, and how many times do we say if you're the 3rd car in the train, you've not really got much chance of overtaking? That is true as well. Obviously, if you're the 8th or 9th car in the train, you've got even less chance of making a move, because even if you wanted to go for a dive, you could very easily end up hitting the car in front of the one you're aiming to overtake, get yourself damage, probably get yourself a penalty as well. And to be honest, Verstappen, he seems to have stepped his pace up ever so slightly. M-Short really struggling to stay close to him in the dirty air at the moment. Now, whether that is intentional, whether M-Short knows that he doesn't want to overheat his tyres and overheat his engine as well, maybe he might think about putting it in lean mixture because he is running a bit low on fuel. The yellow mark on the telemetry suggesting that at this rate of fuel burn, he's not getting to the end of the race, but that naturally sorts itself out. Obviously, as the cars get lighter, you end up burning less fuel because you're not trying to accelerate as much through the corners. You end up wearing your tyres out less as well because you're not trying to brake and turn as much fuel. So I don't think I'll be too worried about this at the moment. Campbell's sort of just in a league of his own at the moment. He's not got too much to worry about from the cars behind. Noisy, though, on a set of mediums, might be able to catch him up. We'll have to wait and see how that goes, because he started on a set of soft tyres as well, and now he's on the far quicker medium, so he's going for a 2-stop. He's got to be one to watch, because he's definitely got to make some overtakes if he wants to get a good result for the Academy team.
Yeah, he's really got to make some overtakes and get up the road if he wants to make this actually work, like you say. So, see what he can do if he can close in on Campbell. One thing to note as well, Verstappen has got decent pace, but he is running down at 10% ERS, so he has burnt pretty much all of his ERS trying to build this pace. And I think maybe M-Short recognises that they're catching a queue of cars at this point in the race. So, even if he does drop outside a second, give it a few laps, and he'll probably be back within a second of Verstappen anyway. So, maybe he's just trying to save his tyres at this point in the race, not having to push too hard. Whereas Verstappen, you can tell, really pushing that car at the moment. They are pulling away from Campbell, who's kind of a little bit on his own at the moment, and Noisy is catching him as it stands, not by a lot, but he is catching up to the QVR driver. At the front of the field, Perpetuum still leads the way. The gap is now 5.5 seconds between himself and Russell. Russell's still 2 seconds clear of Scuderia Seb, who's got Hyper right behind him, and these two are both being caught by Laser in the second TTG car. So while it wasn't a great qualifying for Laser, he's made his way through the early phases nicely, and now he's right on the back of the rest of the medium runners. Yeah,
he's kept it nice and clean, and as we've seen from both of the Leonis drivers, that's half the battle on a street circuit as Hyper gets very close to the back of Scuderia Seb. Up ahead, I think he gave him a slight little tap there, coming into turn 7 and again into turn 8. Not as harsh as the tap we saw Perpetuum give Campbell early on, but like, Hyper's looking pretty quick at the moment. You've got to say, Vapor, we've seen this a bit more in the second half of the season. They've got some serious pace in those cars.
Yeah, they really have. They struggled in the early phases of the season to make anything happen. Meanwhile, further down, I think M-Short was trying to go for a move there on Verstappen, tucked right up behind him, but just couldn't get the move done into turn 7, so it was stick behind for the time being. But yeah, to finish off on your point, Vapor were struggling at the start of the season, kind of languishing at the bottom end of the standings. I believe they're still 8th, but they are much closer now to that battle for 4th in the standings. They've really picked up the pace. They've always been strong in qualifying. Translating it to the race has been the problem of theirs. That has definitely picked up in the previous rounds. Well, coming on to lap 9 of this race now, so we're not far away from when the medium runners are likely to come in. They're likely to come in probably around lap 12 or 13, so not long to go for these guys. Perpetuum still leads, but crucially on that lap, Perpetuum a second off his personal best and no faster than Russell that time round. So is Perpetuum starting to run out of tyres? As just as we talk about Vapor, Hyper has spun the car coming out of turn 21.
Yeah, and he's got big damage as well, so he'll be coming into the pits. Good news for Verstappen and M-Short is that's one less car in the train, and Russell's got another penalty as well, so they're looking quick, but mistakes just creeping in. Last lap around, I've had a quick check of Verstappen's time versus Perpetuum's time. Verstappen gained about half a tenth of a second, I think, if that, so Perpetuum's still doing a good job on these medium tyres at this moment in time, and we know he's definitely going to have much fresher if he does go for the hard tyres, and I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. He's going to have much fresher hard tyres at the end of the race, as now Zach picks up a penalty. It's all going to depend about if he can get past M-Short and then Verstappen, because I will expect he will come out behind both of them. He'll want to make sure, though, he doesn't drop behind Campbell. It'll be interesting to see if he's got an engineer in the chat with him just looking at what sort of times they are, because he won't know where these cars are, really. The game does tell you where you come out in the pitch, roughly, but unless you're paying attention to the stream, and if you're anything like me, you definitely can't watch something and drive at the same time. It's going to be tough to work out when's going to be the best lap for him to pick, but for now, he is, I think, just starting to lose a bit of time on those medium tyres, but I think we've only just reached that crossover.
Yeah, like you say, we've only kind of reached that point in the race now where the mediums are just starting to go off. But even so, even if they are starting to go off, Verstappen and M-Short do continue to catch that queue of cars in front. So that is just going to continue to play into Perpetuum's hand. He stays out for another lap. Let's check and see what his lap time is when he crosses the line. So 1 minute 40.1 from Perpetuum that time around. So we'll keep an eye on what Verstappen and M-Short do on this lap as they come through towards the end of the lap. M-Short still tucked right underneath the rear wing of that QVR car. And at the moment, one thing to note as well is Campbell is now starting to re-close back in on these two. So has Verstappen pushed hard and early on these hard compound tyres and is just starting to struggle across the line. Comes Verstappen 39.5, so he was actually 0.6 of a second faster that lap around than Perpetuum. So it is definitely starting to swing back towards Verstappen and M-Short at this point in the race. Campbell even faster than the pair of them, and so was Noisy. So it's all starting to concertina up for the net lead of this race as it stands. Further down the field, Rudy looking for a move on Jules here. Rudy down the inside, coming up towards turn 7, gets the move done. Jules is going to try and hang it around the outside, but just doesn't have the grip. Then Rudy up into 5th for the International Racing Team. Jules, the lead hard runner, back down into 6th, and he's got Dropia and Yannick, his VR teammate, right behind him as well. Jules, good start on the hards, but in the mid phase of this race, just doesn't seem to be able to maintain the pace.
Yeah, Rudy's done a good job to stay with him, and I think used a lot of his ERS. So this battled 4th place in the Constructors in the team standings. You've got to say International Racing Team looking very good at the moment. Both their cars towards the front of the field. LR, probably this race is going to write them out of being realistically in that battle. And we'll have to see how things go for QVR Academy and VER later on in the race. Perpetuum, he's still pulling away though from the other cars that are on the medium tyres. He's about 7 seconds ahead of Russell now, who already has 6 seconds of time penalties, I believe. So 8.6 seconds ahead of Scuderia Seb, who you can say is in an effective second position at this point in the race. He's just keeping his head down, doing his thing at this moment in time. But I think next lap around could be the one where he pits if he wants to try and stay out ahead of Campbell, as Russell and Scuderia Seb deciding they're already fed up of these medium tyres. Maybe they might have to go slightly early because they did start on these. We're probably thinking more about when you start outside the top 10 and you're on a fresh set, you want to pit around lap 12 or 13. They've already put 2 laps on these tyres, so this could be the lap to come in.
Yeah, and another thing to note as well, Russell's had a front wing change, interestingly. I didn't see where he's picked any damage up. There wasn't any visible damage on our end, but a front wing change for the Vapor driver drops him well behind Scuderia's Zeb now. And with those penalties looming over him, that is a big, big problem now for his race. Scuderia's Zeb, he was about 10 or so seconds, around 10 seconds behind Perpetuum. He's come up behind Zaunima, so at this point in the race, M-Short has got the move done on Verstappen, meanwhile, up towards turn 7. So this time around, M-Short has got the move done. He just sitting and bided his time, has waited for the right moment, has got the move done, and has still got a bit of ERS in his back pocket to use to defend if Verstappen comes back at him. So M-Short back into the net lead of this race. But going back to the point of where Perpetuum's going to come out in this race, it looks like at the moment it's going to come out behind Noisy, but Noisy at this point isn't a threat in the race. As further down, Cortez has gone off the road. So Cortez's race, after such a great race in Italy, it's completely fallen apart for him at Singapore.
Yeah, it has. He's not got any major front wing damage. I think he just slightly tapped the wall as he was trying to recover there, but I can't imagine that's caused too much damage on his car. He's now just got to be careful and get the tyres back into temperature. You spin up the rears as you're trying to rotate yourself around on this circuit, and it's very easy to then overheat the tyres and cause yourself more problems. I can see why M-Short got the move done on that lap, because this time around, they're probably going to get DRS off of Corboy, so it would have been a lot more difficult for him to get that move done. Now we'll have to see if he can get past Corboy, who is actually going to come into the pits. I was about to say, if he could get past Corboy and put a car in between himself and Verstappen, that would have been great for his chances in this race. But he has got a lot fresher tyres. We'll see if he can pull away now, whether Verstappen will be able to stay with him or not. They are on very similar tyre life and very similar ERS usage as well now.
Yeah, definitely very similar. As Corboy then, where's he going to come out relative to the people he was battling earlier on? He's going to come out. There goes Russell past him. Behremi will be the next car, but he's coming through the final two corners. It's going to be close with Behremi and Baby Kea at the moment for Corboy as he comes out of the pit lane. I think it's going to be coming close as he comes through turns 1 and 2. I think Behremi might just have him here as he comes into 3. Actually, it's going to be very close. I'm running side by side into turn 3, and it looks like Corboy is going to hold the inside line. No, Behremi with a better run around the outside holds that 15th place and gets through into turn 5. All very close to contact though as they come round. Oh, and that's caused Baby Kea to spin another time in this race. So Leone's race just goes from bad to worse to utterly horrendous, running 18th and 19th, and another spin for Baby Kea in this race. So not working out for them at all. Laser, by the way, has pitted as well. He's come out just behind Russell in 14th place. So he's not too far out of the equation just yet, and Russell with the time penalties looming over him, as does Isotopic, but he's got 2 cars, interestingly, between himself and Scuderia's Zeb, who is his closest rival in this race. Yeah,
you're never out of the equation at Singapore. It is never over until the fat lady sings. It's only the top 5 drivers now that have yet to pit. Perpetuum's going on for another lap. He's definitely going to be behind Campbell. He's going to be behind Noisy as well now when he comes out of the pits, but I can't imagine Noisy putting up too much resistance to Perpetuum. They're in the same team, they're both in TTG, but one's in the academy team. And I think this is why for next season a new rule is going to be implemented, that a team can't have an academy and a main team in the same league to make sure no one gets a slight advantage from maybe having 4 cars. But Perpetuum's hard tyres, they're going to be so much better than them Shorts and Verstappen's at the end of this race that I don't think they're going to have a chance of holding him off to defend.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for them, and now M-Short has crucially caught this queue of hard runners who are going to be staying out for quite a few laps longer. Now, what is Jules' pace compared to the likes of Perpetuum in this race? Is he running at the same speed, or is he slower than Perpetuum? If he's slower than Perpetuum, that's really going to help Perpetuum in this race. It's going to hold M-Short and Verstappen up if they can't get the move done, and Campbell as well if he can't catch up to these guys in time either. Noisy, crucially, on those medium tyres, he's got solid pace. He's just not fast enough to close in on Campbell. He's nearly 10 seconds clear of Zaudema, though, who has got Scuderia's Zeb right up behind him in this race now. Russell has passed Isotopic as well, so already it's showing that the newer hard compound tyres looking much stronger. Scuderia's Zeb catching the back of Zaudema incredibly quickly. Russell already passed Isotopic.
Yeah, that's looking incredible. Corboy was trying to get past Hyper at that time as well. I think Cortez has been in the wall again, and he retires in the race. He is a QVR Academy driver, of course, not the main team, so that's not going to have an effect on the championship standings. And I think once Perpetuum comes into the pits, which is now, and those at the hard tyres make their first stop, we'll try and work out what the current championship standings are. But yeah, it's just not going to plan for Cortez. But this is the thing with Singapore. Those hard tyres, it's the tyre delta. It's how much you lose each lap. It's ridiculous. I've seen drivers around this circuit, similar to what I saw with TTML last night, with soft tyres versus old hard tyres. You can gain 3 or 4 seconds a lap around here, and I wonder whether M-Short and Verstappen, if they really do get stuck behind quite a few cars, I wonder whether they'd think, do we change this to a 2-stop somehow and just absolutely kill the tyres and see what we can do? Perpetuum, he's come out in 8th place then behind Noisy, but he's in plenty of free air.
And M-Short, meanwhile, going for the move on Yannick, coming up into turn 7, gets the move done very easily. And Yannick now, that is crucially a car between M-Short and Verstappen. Like you were mentioning earlier on, this time around it is in a bit of a queue, so M-Short is going to get held. But these guys are now really starting to fight. Perpetuum then out of the pit lane in a lot of clean air, comfortably clear of Scooter Seb, who has got the move done on Zaldama. So Zaldama crucially down a place. That's not going to help Excel in their battle to try and hold on in this championship at the moment. Russell now right on the back as well, when Laser has passed Isotopic in the last lap as well. So all starting to pile pressure now onto the back of Zaldama, who's already on 9-lap old hard compound tyres. M-Short immediately past Dropley as well, so M-Short's flying through. Verstappen now trying to get a move done here down the inside, but they're too wide in front of him already. It's really difficult to find a way through here, and a little bit of contact for Verstappen coming out of the corner as they head up towards turn 16, and Verstappen here crucially not able to get the move done, and like you mentioned earlier on, comes into the final sector now with no opportunity of overtaking, and M-Short is just disappearing up the road.
Yeah, I think what happened is Dropia, I think he got a bit of wheel spin coming out of turn 13, and that just made it straightforward to M-Short to get the move done. And I don't know whether now Dropia's trying to hang back and help Verstappen out, but look at all this battling means Campbell's now on the back of his teammate all of a sudden, and M-Short nearly 2 seconds ahead, and he might have a chance to get Jules. Jules has got a lot more VRS, so that could make it difficult, but he'll have a lot less grip at this point in the race as well. Perpetuum's nearly on the back of Noisy, who did go for that different strategy, and it just doesn't look like he's had the pace to make it work for him. Verstappen, he might find it difficult to move himself further up the order because he's got a big lack of ERS. Yannick's got the ERS and got the DRS, and that's just going to negate the tyre disadvantage that the VER driver is at.
Yeah, something that will be of comfort to him, though, is M-Short wasn't quite able to get the move done on Jules, because M-Short himself has a lack of ERS compared to Jules, so Jules can use some of his to defend if he wishes to do so. Baby Kea has a retired in the pit lane, so that is now 2 DNFs from this race, one from Leonis Academy, one from the QVR Academy. Crucially, yeah, like you said, Campbell caught up to these guys very quickly. Perpetuum now right on the back of Noisy for 7th place, and is only 3 seconds off of Campbell and Verstappen, so despite staying out that much longer, his tyres are now 9 laps younger, and he's only 3 seconds back. So that, to me, is a massive win for Perpetuum as they come down towards turn 14. Verstappen to the inside this time around on Yannick in the corner is going to get the move done on the VER driver. Now Campbell's going to think about a move to try and get past as well, but he can't quite do so. But crucially, Verstappen is already losing time to M-Short. Drop you would imagine is going to put up too much of a fight, but Verstappen running low on ERS for this pretty much this entire race has cost him crucially in this battle. Meanwhile, Perpetuum's got past Noisy.
Yeah, Perpetuum's flying past Noisy. Now we'll see how easily Verstappen can get past Dropia. Again, I can't see him providing much resistance as Jules comes into pits less than half distance.
Wow.
On the set of the hard tyres. That is not what you expect, obviously, because it means he's going to have to do a longer run on a set of the medium, so he's clearly not feeling confident. Verstappen did manage to get past Dropia there fairly straightforwardly, so they are first and second now. Dropia third, Yannick fourth, Campbell fifth, Perpetuum. He's nearly within 1.5 seconds of these drivers. Next time around, I think he's probably going to have the DRS. Now we'll see whether Campbell can get past the VER car of Yannick. And again, no ERS, no chance.
Yeah, can't find a way through at the moment. Dropia did move completely out of the way on the pit straight. Almost came to a stop, letting his QVR teammate through. But that is the advantage of having 2 teams in the same division. So Dropia down to third, Verstappen up to second. But crucially for Verstappen, out of DRS range now of M-Short. So it's going to be really difficult for him to close up on the XL driver, who has looked the faster of the 2 so far in this race. Campbell already has got Perpetuum within DRS range. And we've already seen that these 2 have battled very hard in this race so far. So it's round 2 between Perpetuum and Campbell. This time around it could be for a 3rd place in this race, and it could save TTG's championship if he can pull this off. We'll see what he can do as he heads down towards turn 14. Campbell again not close enough to the virtual esports driver in front of him. BBK has unfortunately left the session, but Campbell, like I mentioned, that lack of ERS just not allowing him to do anything with it really. Perpetuum has 70% in his back pocket, much better ERS management from the TTG driver, who's almost looking for a move into 17. Campbell feigns to the inside to try and defend from it, but you can see Perpetuum's just got so much more speed at this point in the race as Russell gets past Zalnama, and Zalnama drops another place.
Yeah, that early pit stop doesn't seem to have worked for these drivers that went for it. And look at that, we've got already Campbell.
Oh, beautiful.
Well, just drop you, sorry, and drop you and Yaniek coming into the pits. I thought for a second it was Campbell coming in. But yeah, Perpetuum right on the back of Campbell, who did manage to get DRS on that straight. He's not going to have it, obviously, on the run down into turn 7. And again, he taps him. That's not as bad as the one earlier on. I think that's just purely the difference in the tyre life. Now, this could get very tasty on this straight. Perpetuum loses quite a bit in the dirty air, and that might be Campbell's chance. He's weaving on the straight to break for toe. I'm not sure whether this is going to have an effect here. Perpetuum's going to go for the outside line. Can he just pull it off all the way around the outside? Campbell's going to give him absolutely no room whatsoever, but that's the inside for the next corner for Perpetuum. This is a carbon copy of what was happening earlier on in the race, and Perpetuum gets that move done. Campbell, he did the best rear gunner job that he could there, but he was basically fighting with one hand tied behind his back.
Yeah, just didn't have the ERS to defend, and at least this time around from Perpetuum, when he did hit the back of Campbell, he did let off, but you could definitely tell Perpetuum's just got so much more speed at this point in the race and a lot more ERS to play with. So now 3.5 seconds between himself and Verstappen. What can he do about the QVR driver? That is his main target, is to beat the QVR drivers in this race. Further down the field, the other TTG driver of Laser is now on the back of Zaldimer, trying to work his way through the field. Noisy obviously is going to have to make another pit stop in this race, so Laser still on for, at least at the moment, a 7th place finish with Russell's penalties. So TTG are not fully out of this one just yet. We'll wait and see what they can do. Perpetuum already, though, look at that, already 1.2 seconds clear of Campbell, and that's only on 11 lap old hard compound tyres. And we've seen some of the people that started on the hards not even make it half distance. So the likes of Verstappen and Campbell, especially Verstappen, are going to have next to no pace by the end of this race. Campbell, he did have a battle on that lap, but he's already at least a second a lap off his personal best.
Yeah, it just shows how quickly the hard tyres were, because we saw Jules come in around about lap 14 off his set of hard tyres, and he's now setting the fastest lap of the race. Unsurprisingly, if things finished as they are at the moment, XL would still be in the championship battle. I think with Perpetuum 3rd and Laser in 9th place, TTG would just be out of it, but that could all change, of course, because Zydemer, we know, we expected him to drop down the order because Laser is fairly close to him, and maybe Rudy, Jules, and some of these others might be able to get a move. With that Jules, he's now all over the back of Rudy, so the VAR driver is up into 11th. If the race finished as it is now, not counting any of the penalties for Russell, Isotopic, and those further down, the championship battle for the League 1 title would still be between QVR and XL Racing, but I think QVR would have 9 fingers on the trophy. Have to see, will their tyres last out? Will there be any penalties between the top 3 drivers and the top 3 teams?
Yeah, going to be really crucial in this race. And what can the QVR drivers do in terms of their tyre wear? Perpetuum has already brought that gap down to 2.3 seconds between himself and Verstappen. Perpetuum is one of the fastest drivers on the track at the moment. He's the fastest hard runner on the track at the moment as it stands. Faster than M-Short, faster than Verstappen. Verstappen's running at pretty similar pace to M-Short at this point in the race, but M-Short is looking pretty comfortable at the front of the field. He crosses the line. 39.3 for M-Short that lap for Verstappen. 39.4 for Perpetuum that lap. A 38.4. So a second a lap faster than Verstappen in front, and we've still got 13 laps to go in this race. So Perpetuum is sitting pretty at the moment in third. He's already 2.5 seconds clear of Campbell, and Noisy is now into the pit lane for his second pit stop. That'll be for a fresh set of medium compound tyres, you would imagine. We'll see where he comes out in the pack, but he's going to be right down towards the back of the field, probably behind the likes of Bear Remy at the back of the field.
Yeah, that is obviously good news for XL and TTG, because that moves their drivers up into 7th and 8th, and I think they're going to be battling soon over 7th and 8th place. Laser right on the back of Zydemer coming out of turn 5, just can't quite get close enough to really go for a move into 7 as Jules this time gets past Isotopic, a long way actually before we get to turn 7, so he's up into 9th, and that brilliant qualifying place from OWR. I think we've seen this a few times. They just seem to drop back in the race. They haven't got that same consistency as some of the other drivers, and just seem to struggle a bit more in the race, maybe wearing their tyres out and getting a few penalties as well. Perpetuum, I think maybe he's doing the sensible thing here, not sprinting up to the back of Verstappen, because he doesn't want to ruin his own tyres. He just needs to catch up to them at a fairly steady rate, 3 tenths a lap. Probably ideally you'd want to do half a second, because you've got to overtake and you'll lose a bit of time on those laps most likely. I'd say Perpetuum's in a very good position at the moment, as Laser and Zydemer are still battling over 7th and 8th further behind, and that is good news for TTG and bad news for XL. And in fact, Zydemer's trying to hang in there, and that's going to give Jules a wonderful chance.
All down into 17. This is a risky opportunity, and down the inside, that's not going to work. Jules loses the rear of the car, gets away with it, but Isotopic spins off the back of the VR driver, and that is Isotopic into the wall. Does that bring out any sort of virtual or full safety car? He's just waiting, I think, to turn around at the right point. But that is such a shame for Isotopic. Just an audacious move from Jules on the medium compound tyres. Didn't work out. That's dropped him back out of DRS range to Zaldimer in front. But yeah, like you mentioned, Laser then up into 7th place, 6th at the moment with Russell's penalties as it stands, and still a long way to go. Back at the front of the field though, Verstappen has lost a bit of time in these last few laps. It's now 2.5 seconds between himself and M-Short, and Perpetuum crucially now within DRS range and with much more ERS to use. So Perpetuum now cruising up to the back of him, but like we mentioned earlier on, it's what you can do when you get to the back of the car in front. We've already seen Perpetuum be aggressive on his overtakes. Is he going to be equally aggressive with Verstappen as he was with Campbell?
We'll have to see. He's not going to go for it this time around. He's got plenty more ERS. He'll be able to catch up tons then on the run down here into turn 14 and onto the main straight as well. And then it's all about, is he close enough into 7? As Zach gets a penalty for corner cutting. It's really been a disastrous day for Leonis. From the highs of 2 wins in a row to a disaster of possibly, at best, finishing in last place. Really feel sorry for Isotopic in all that. He was just an innocent party, just on the scene of someone else's accident, and wasn't able to ghost in time, just to say, for VAR Jules. And just bad news for Isotopic and Zach. He pulls into the pits after receiving so many corner cutting penalties and retires from the race. So both LR cars are out of this. I think they might be fairly livid with how the performance has gone. Perpetuum, he's nearly within half a second of Verstappen. This could be the lap.
Yeah, is he going to cruise up to the back of him and do it as quickly as he can? Can he dispatch of him quickly enough? He's using his ERS coming out of turn 3, so he is definitely going to try and go for the move here down towards turn 7. Can he get the run this time around? He's got a good run. Verstappen with no ERS to use, and you can see there with a flashing light on the back of that car, Verstappen's just got no straight line speed, and Perpetuum breezes past because of it. ERS management is a big part of this game. Both QVR drivers have struggled with their ERS management today. Perpetuum has not, and that has just showed why ERS management is so crucial. Even at a track like Singapore, with some short straights, Perpetuum made that look like he was passing a Formula 2 car.
Yeah, just so straightforward, and Jules now has caught back up to Zydemer, and again has flown past him, and I think Zydemer's could well, I don't think it'll be too long before he might even think about coming into the pits. He was one of the first drivers. He's just hemorrhaging places. At the moment, is it worth just trying something different? Because you'd expect Drop here to be able to catch him up fairly quickly, maybe even Rudy as well. It's just not gone to plan for him. This is what we said about starting in the lower parts of the top 10 on a set of the soft tyres. You are going to have big problems in the race, and unfortunately, that's what he's finding out. Berami, another driver who was in that situation, started in a lower part of the top 10, and things just haven't quite gone as you'd have imagined.
Yeah, just not worked out at all for them, has it, so far? It's just not really been a good race for Zaldimer, the second XL car. I guess the only problem for Zaldimer at this point in the race is that if he does pit now, that could drop XL out of championship contention because of where the two QVR drivers are at the moment. I'm not sure on the mass myself, but if he pitted now, he would definitely come out in, I believe, he'd be coming out in 14th place, which could drop XL out of the championship running as it stands. So he maybe is just staying out, maybe hoping for a safety car that could bring him back into contention, or just hoping to try and finish up as high as possible. Back to the lead of the race. M-Short leads. Gap's already down though to 2.2 seconds. Perpetuum's chasing after that lead. He's doing everything he can to make sure that TTT try and stay in this championship. And at the moment, if Perpetuum is able to get past M-Short, it is looking very likely that it could end up being TTG who challenge QVR going into the next round, and XL could be dropping out of the championship running because of it.
Yeah, it could pretty much be whoever wins out of those drivers is going to end up taking their team into the finale of the championship in about 4 weeks' time. Jules gets ahead of Laser, Dropia gets ahead of Zydemer. The medium tyres are now starting to come into their own. How high up the field can Jules get? He's within penalty range of Russell nearly already, so 6th place at least, and I think any higher than that is going to be a struggle, and he might have to rely on bad luck for some of those further ahead. Verstappen, I noticed he was using whatever little bit of his ERS he had to just stick within DRS range of Perpetuum to maybe see if he could hang on to him as the TTG driver catches up onto the back of M-Short in the XL car, but he's not been able to do it at this moment in time. And there we go. That shows the advantage of fresh tyres around here.
Wow.
Driver in last place. So that's the fastest lap of the race. Isotopic on a 1:36 there, down in 17th position. We've got 9 laps to go here. Bertram definitely reeling M Short in, and the M Short's tyres are going to be very second best, I think, by the time the TTG car catches up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Perpetuum can do. Is it going to be as easy to move on M-Short as it was on Verstappen? M-Short, much like Verstappen, is running with no ERS and hasn't been able to save any. His laser now, interestingly, picks up a time penalty, so that could be really crucial for TTG's chances going into the final round. That, at the moment, would drop in behind both Dropia and Zaldama as it stands, with Rudy not too far back as well. So, still all to play for here. It's not out the question that QVR could still win tonight, but they are a little bit on the back foot in this battle for the win at the moment. 3rd and 4th, still a good result. They just don't seem to have the pace of M-Short, and the strategy from Perpetuum has worked out really nicely so far. I guess the only threat now for QVR is whether Scuderia Seb can catch Campbell. Scuderia Seb is faster than Campbell at this point in the race and has got 6-lap fresh and hard compound tyres. Do you see Scuderia Seb maybe catching Campbell for 4th place by the end of this?
I think the only way that's going to happen is if there's bad luck for Campbell in the form of a puncture, to be perfectly honest. I don't think he's going to have 3/4 of a second a lap advantage on his tyres, which is what he needs at this moment in time. But that's something Campbell and Verstappen have got to think about, and M-Short as well. They've got the oldest tyres. Will they last towards the end of the race? Once you get to 75%, it's a bit of a lottery as to when your tyres can go. You can get to 99%, they could go at 75%. Hopefully, we don't see that decide anything. We don't want any Mansell moments in this series, but it's always something you've got to consider around here. And Dropia, he could help QVR out here because he's got ahead of Laser and he's got ahead of Zydama.
Yeah, he really has. It's working nicely. Those fresh medium compound tyres, like you mentioned, the fresh tyres have a massive advantage. Jules and Dropia are showing it massively here. They have just breezed through the field so easily, even with Jules with a lack of ERS, has just breezed past all the cars in front of him back up into 7th place. I think he was 12th or 11th place when he came out of the pit lane, and that just goes to show how strong those medium compound tyres are at the end of the race. If they had a bit more pace on the hards at the front at the start of the race, who knows where they could have been. But Jules now within penalty range of Russell, Dropper in penalty range of the pair of them, so he's looking at a possible 6th place finish as it stands, and there's still a long way to go in this race. At the front of the field though, Perpetuum is now crucially just within DRS range of M-Short in front and is already 3 seconds clear of Verstappen. Verstappen losing that DRS has meant that he's just fallen back, and it looks like he's just settling for 3rd place.
Yeah, probably the wisest thing to do, just manage your tyres. He has got the oldest of anyone in the field alongside XL, and just claim this position, because even stopping within penalty range I think is going to be a big struggle. But you never know if anything could happen between the two drivers up front, of course. You've just got to keep on going, just concentrate on your own race. It's still been a fantastic performance from QBR. They look like they're going to be near to the highest scoring team, if not the highest scoring team. It's whether they outscore XL or TTG, and or both, obviously, to secure the championship with 1 round to spare.
Yeah, we have to keep an eye on that maths as the race goes on. Hopefully someone can do maths quicker than us. I'm not very good at doing maths quickly, so this is probably going to take a long while for us to work it out. But once again, as soon as Perpetuum gets into with the DRS range of the car in front, he catches up to them very, very quickly and makes the move stick very early on. So is Perpetuum in the position to do that again this time around? He just had to back out of turn 2 there to stop himself running wide. He's not as close to M-Short this time around as he was to Verstappen, so I don't think he's going to be close enough to make the move down in towards turn 7. Definitely not with the run he got out of the corner, so he's probably going to have to wait for maybe a run into turn 14 if he's close enough. But at least for this lap, Perpetuum's just going to have to wait. But he's got enough time left in this race to wait a couple laps for the right opportunity to come. But when the right opportunity comes, he's got to make it stick immediately. Yeah,
he has. You see, M-Short's gone very deep there into turn number 8. Not really a chance for Perpetuum to get alongside though, so he just has to sit back for now. Turn 14 could be the first opportunity. It's pretty much single file up until then, but he's got a lot more ERS and he'll have a lot more tyre grip at this point in the race. But I just don't think he's going to be close enough unless M-Short makes a mistake. Hyper, he's lost a bit of time there as he picks up a penalty. You've now got Noisy getting past Yanni X, and Noisy on that 2-stop strategy, one of the few drivers to try it. He's got himself up into 12th place. We'll see if he can actually gain any more places. He might even be able to get a top 10 here, Noisy.
Yeah, it could definitely be on for one. Zaldama really struggling in 10th place now, has been caught by Rudy, and Noisy is going to be catching these guys incredibly quickly. We'll see what the gap is. It's 3.5 seconds at the moment. Look at that. Took half a second pretty much out of them in 2 corners alone. So those fresh mediums doing Noisy very nicely at this point in the race. And of course, he's got no penalties to his name either, so that is another thing we can keep an eye out for. Back to the front of the field, Perpetuum. It's still within half a second of M Short at the lead of this race. He's not going to go for the move in turn 1, at least this time around into turn 1. He's much closer to the back of the Excel driver. Can he get the run through turn 4 this time around? M Short already derating as he comes out of turn 3. Has no ERS for himself to defend with. Perpetuum's right up behind him. Has Perpetuum got a good enough run out of turn 4? I definitely say he's close enough to go for the move here. And again, look at that. Almost immediately as he puts the ERS on, M Short runs out of straight line speed, but M Short puts him in the wall. M Short puts Perpetuum Mobile in the wall, and that is a virtual safety car, and that for sure is a definite penalty for M Short. And I'm pretty sure that that move there has just taken both TTG and XL completely out of the running. QVR there might have just won the championship with that move.
It is very possible. It is very possible. M Short is entitled to defend his position, but it was coming at some point in this race. He did go for the move. Perpetuum, he was pretty much halfway alongside and had so much overspeed that he wasn't going to be able to react. And it's a shame that it's had to end that way. They can blame the physics all they want, but the end of the matter is M Short's moved across, not left Perpetuum enough space, and Perpetuum will be absolutely furious. And obviously that, yes, it keeps M Short in the lead of the race, but it bumps QVR up from 3rd and 4th into 2nd and 3rd place, and that is an extra 4 points for that team. That could well, like you said, that could well decide things.
Yeah, Callboy gets the drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car, but that, at least in my opinion, that was a definite penalty for M Short on my end. That was just not left enough room, put him clean into the wall. And you've got to say, like you said, the move was inevitable. Perpetuum had so much more speed in that car that he was going to be passed by the corner anyway. That is a really aggressive defence manoeuvre, and that could have just gifted QVR the EML League 1 Championship, running in 2nd and 3rd. You did mention it earlier on, anything can happen with the top 2. It certainly did. I didn't expect it to go that way, but that is exactly what happened. Perpetuum is out of the race. Leis is only 8th, and with a penalty at the moment. Exaldima's down in 9th. M Short in the lead, but will definitely have a steward's investigation looming over him. QVR 2nd and 3rd, with only 5 laps to go in this race. QVR sitting pretty at the moment in 2nd and 3rd. They must be rubbing their hands together after that incident. Seeing Perpetuum retired on the side of the road, they must have been jumping with joy. That's worked perfectly for them. That also means that Scooter is 7 is now up into 4th. Russell's up into 5th on the road, but Jules has caught him now, and Jules, with that time penalty still looming over him, Jotpia's right behind him as well, so Jotpia here could be on for a top 5 finish.
He could well be as well. QVR could get themselves 3 cars in the top 5. If I was M Short, and now be thinking, right, let's try and get 5 seconds ahead of Verstappen, just in case it's a 5-second penalty that I get. We'll have to see what the stewards end up coming with. I'd still think there's a tiny risk of all these drivers at the front getting a puncture. I would not be surprised if Scooter Seb ends up winning this race.
Yeah, it definitely could happen. Scooter Rizab at the moment in 4th place. He is being caught by the drivers behind, but of course the only driver that's a real threat to him at the moment is Dropia, because he's the only one that doesn't have a time penalty, but he's got much fresher tyres, like you say, than the drivers in front. They are clearly, you can tell at this point in the race, just nursing those tyres to the end of the race, especially Verstappen, you've got to say. 22 laps old already in this race. They will be right at the end of their life. You can see the tyre wear on that front right tyre. It's really showing up, so he's just got to try and get that car to the end of the race without puncturing one of his front tyres. We'll see what he can do further down the field as well. Zaldama still under pressure from Rudy. Noisy has caught these guys as well, so a battle for 9th this is now, and Noisy on the fresher medium tyres has a lot more raw speed in that car. See if he can get a move done and maybe get close enough to later to steal an 8th place off of the main TTG driver in this race. What a flip we've had in this race. It looked like it could have been Perpetuum's win. It looked like it was M-Shot's win earlier on. Now it looks like QVR could be coming away with this one with a massive opportunity of taking the championship win. You can see running on board there with Noisy, the understeer through the final 2 corners in the dirty air. Just couldn't get the move done down the pit straight because of it. But at this point in the race, you've got to say that the only real battle on the track now is for 9th place. Everyone else seems to be pretty spread out.
Yeah, they do indeed. Russell is pretty close to the back of Seb, and Jules is nearly there as well, but I think at this point they're probably at a similar point in the tyre life, so it's all going to be about ERS, keeping your DRS. Yannick setting the fastest lap of the race just for feeling like he's having a bit of fun at the moment, hoping that he can well, he won't be able to catch anyone up. I said the softs are good, they're not going to be 5 seconds a lap over 4 laps. better than the cars ahead of you, but just keep on going. You never know if anything can happen with penalties. I say, as Yannick picks up a penalty himself. But yeah, Zoidema, he pitted very early on, and he's just not seemed to be able to have the pace in this race at the moment. Could still, though, get ninth position, and if we check what the penalties are like, if Laser picks up another penalty, he could finish ahead of him as well. So it's definitely worth him fighting at this point in the race. I don't know how hard it will be, though, for Rudy to get past. He's not got a lot of ERS, so might be worth Rudy just sitting back for a bit, saving a bit of ERS, then going for it in the final lap or two.
Yes, he doesn't want to take the risk of trying to go for a late lunge or anything like that on Zalama, because Noisy will be there to capitalise if he does make a mistake. And Noisy does have more ERS than Rudy, and I believe Zadma, actually, no, Zadma has more ERS than both of them, but it's just struggling with those older hard compound tyres. 3 laps to go in this race. M Short leads by 4.8 seconds. He's got great pace, but a possible penalty looming over him after that contact with Perpetuum. Verstappen then in second place, cruising now to the end of this race with absolutely no ERS left, down to 0%. The ERS management, you've got to say, has been the only thing that's seemingly gone wrong for QVR in this race. Other than that, while they've not had the pace of M Short and Perpetuum, they've kept it clean, and that's kind of what QVR have done of all season long. They've not won the most races, they've not got the most pole positions, they've not been at the very front of every race so far, but they've been incredibly consistent, and that is why they lead the championship.
Yeah, definitely. It's a team championship at the end of the day. Oh, bit of contact there between Russell and Jules, and that has sent Russell spinning around. I think if anyone watched the historic Monaco Grand Prix, where the car in front just gets a bit of wheel spin and gets tapped by the car behind, I think that's very similar to what's just happened there. Jules was so close to the back of Russell, and I think the Vapor driver just got a bit of wheel spin, but massive consequences for him because he's lost his front wing, and that gains Laser a position and gains Zydemer a position as well. So they're now up to 7th and 8th and promotes some further up the order. Dropye, he's going to get a top 5 here as long as he doesn't get a penalty.
Yeah, definitely looks like it's going to be that way. Is he going to think about trying to get past Jules so he can have a run at Scuderia 7? There's not long to go, but we've already seen the amount of pace advantage the mediums have had in the second half of this race. Does he think he has the pace to maybe challenge, as Noisy now gets a time penalty? So that battle for him for 8th place, he's now on the back foot unless he can get a move done almost immediately on the 2 drivers in front. Rudy really struggling to find a way past Aldema at this point in the race. You can tell Noisy is getting frustrated in that position, trying to find a way through, and just can't do it at the moment in 10th place. 2 laps to go. M Short leads now by 5 seconds in this race. Clear out in front. Verstappen runs in second. Still no sign of a puncture for any of our top 3 in this race. They seem to be just cruising to the finish. I mean, anything can happen, but with 2 laps to go, it's looking more and more unlikely that these guys are going to get a puncture, and it looks like the top 3 might finish in this position.
Yeah, it does indeed. It's really Dropye versus Jules at the moment, which is going to be a move, I think, round the outside into turn 7. Dropye had so much more overspeed there. Jules has gone very deep into the corner, but he's going to defend that position. And then obviously you've got Zoidema, Rudy and Noisy as well. Is Noisy going to go for it down the inside into turn 7 on the IRT driver? That was very straightforward indeed. So Noisy up into 9th. I think Rudy realising he's got a penalty, just let him go at this point in the race. And then maybe if Noisy gets ahead of Zoidema, we could see Rudy try and follow him through and gain a position that way.
And you've got to say for Noisy, that move has kind of come maybe 3 or 4 laps too late in this race now, especially with that penalty. He needed to make that move a long time ago if he really wanted to make a stamp on that 8th place. As it stands, 10th is the best he can get unless he can somehow gap Rudy in these last few laps, but looking very unlikely that that is going to happen. Coming up then to the last lap of the race, M Short continues to lead as he has done pretty much this entire race. Apart from the pit stop phase, M Short has been the man at the front of the field, but it has been a fairly controversial race for the XL driver, putting Perpetuum Mobile in the wall. Coming up to lap 26, I believe it was, the contact was made. Perpetuum going for the lead of the race. The XL driver putting the TTT driver into the wall down Ruffles Boulevard, which meant Perpetuum did not finish this race. M Short then at nearly 6 seconds clear of Verstappen, who you can tell is just cruising to the end of the race, making sure he doesn't get a puncture. His teammate is not a threat to him behind. He's a further 6 seconds back himself as well. Scuderia Seb in 4th, also not a threat, currently 4th at the moment, still 6 seconds behind Campbell, and can't find the pace over the QVR drivers, but still a solid result for the international driver. And the international team at the moment looking like they could have a hand on that 4th place in the standings after Leonis' poor showing.
Yeah, Leonis having a poor showing. QVR, one of their drivers not finishing as well. VAR 5th and 11th, so scoring less points than them. It's looking very good actually for IRT. They won't quite officially secure that 4th place, but they'll be fairly close to it. And to be fair, they'll be closing up to Team TTG as well, who's only going to have one driver finishing. So just have to wait and see what happens with any potential stewards' inquiries as well throughout the entire field. But M-Short is into the final sectors, final few corners of the lap. Just keep it nice and clean. Just keep it out of the wall, and you'll claim the victory here in the Singapore Grand Prix and do what you can to try and keep your team in the championship. I think, with things as they are at the moment, this will just be enough to keep XL in it.
We'll wait and see how it pans out in the stewards' room, but for the time being, M-Short is going to win another race this season at Singapore. I believe his 4th race win of the season. He comes through to take the win ahead of Verstappen, who's going to be on the podium yet again for QVR, and another great showing for QVR in 2nd and 3rd place. A fairly uneventful race for the pair of them, but still a solid result. And again, Scuderia Seb, a solid result from the international racing driver. He crosses the line in 4th place. Jules will cross 5th, but Dropia on penalties will take that 5th place on that alternate strategy. A great drive from the QVR Academy driver. Jules in 6th, equally a great drive as well. Laser into 7th place. Zaldimer somehow manages to get 8th out of that race, having dropped so many places in the midpoint of that race. Still somehow gets 8th place out of Rudy in 9th for the international racing team. Noisy rounds off the top 10. Yannick for Virtual Esports Racing in 11th. Vapor, what could have been for them after a great qualifying, 12th and 13th is all they're going to be able to manage in this race. Hyper crosses in 12th ahead of Russell, who will be next to cross the line. Bay Remy will be the last finisher and the last person on the lead lap in 14th again, just like Vapor. Great qualifying for OWR. The race didn't pan out for them in the end. A pretty eventful race in the end. A bit of an anti-climax, that race in the end after that contact as well from M-Short and Perpetuum. M-Short wins on the track, but QVR now, if they've not won it already, they are, like you mentioned earlier on, 9 fingers on the trophy going into the final round.
I think it is still possible for XL to take the title, but QVR just need both their drivers to finish the next race. 19th and 20th would be enough in the final round of the season, or just one of their drivers finishing in the top 18. So mathematically, it's still on, but a bit like the Premier League title, it's pretty much all over. QVR, barring an absolute disaster, are going to claim this title.
Yeah, it has looked pretty set from the midpoint of the season. QVR have led the championship from the start. They've had pressure from XL and TTG all the way through the season, but XL and TTG haven't really ever been able to sustain the pressure for multiple races. QVR have been so consistent throughout this championship, finishing in the top 5 with both of their drivers on many occasions this season. Like I mentioned earlier on, not got the overall race wins over TTG or XL, but do have the consistency, and that is what has paid dividends so far. Let's run you through then the full finishing order. The top 3 as they qualified is the top 3 as they finished. M-Short wins the race from Verstappen and Campbell. Scuderia Seb finishes in 4th. Dropia from 12th on the grid up into 5th ahead of Jules in 6th and 15th on the grid, so a great drive from him. Laser in 7th ahead of Zaldimer. Rudy and Noisy are your top 10 finishers. Yannick for Virtual Esports Racing in 11th with the fastest lap of the race on those soft compound tyres at the end. Vapor Hyper ahead of Russell in 12th and 13th. Bearemi ahead of Isotopic in 14th and 15th. Coreboy in 16th, the last of the finishers and a lap down. Perpetuum, Zach, Baby Kea and Cortez, your 4 retirees from this race. Perpetuum after contact with M-Short, Cortez after early problems in the race. Both LR drivers retiring after spins. So, bit of a disaster for LR today. But after that round, who is your driver of the race and who's your team of the race, would you say, Luke?
I think team of the race, you can't look any further than QVR. They've done a fantastic performance. Driver of the race, I'm going to go for Jules. Very controlled first stint on the hard tyres, kept his medium tyres going as well. Got 5th out on track, but a penalty dropped him down to 6th, but gaining 9 places. An extremely good job, and to be fair, both VER drivers doing a good job of improving on their qualifying.
Yeah, doing a very good job, like you say, and I have to agree with you, especially on the team QVR once again. Not showy, but incredibly consistent. Drive of the day for me. I'm going to have to go for a drop here, I think. A really good drive from Drop here for the QVR Academy team. Shout out as well to Perpetuum. What a race it could have been for him had it not been for that contact. He had a stunning race up till that point. But he gets a shout out, but I think my drive of the day will probably go to Drop here. We've got, well, 1 round to go in the championship. It's fair to say that the championship is pretty much over, barring anything absolutely crazy happening in the final round of the season. Just some final thoughts from you, Luke, coming out of this round. What are you looking forward to going into the final round of the season?
I think knowing that the championship's pretty much over can sometimes... We always see good Brazilian Grand Prix, and a lot of times in recent years they haven't been title deciders, and I think that's why, because everyone can just relax, they can just go for it in the final race. It is a really, really good track. I hope we can see the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2021. And yeah, just looking forward to hopefully some good racing and maybe see what some of these teams can do, wanting to end on a high for next year. Maybe some of the academy drivers, so Leonis Academy, of course, TTG Academy, and QVR Academy, maybe putting on a bigger show to show that they belong in the big teams.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be really, really interesting, especially with the new rules coming in for next season. One round to go, remember, at Brazil for the final round of the season in a month's time. That is going to be brilliant to watch. Obviously, tune in as well to League Racing TV in about, well, probably now, I would imagine. The stream is probably live for the Premier Division. That will be commentated over by James Head and Daniel Hoggard. Tune into that. That is sure to be a great race. This was another great race as well. Singapore always provides really interesting and great races, and it was definitely that, if not controversial, as well. So we'll wait and see how the results pan out. I'm sure that the results are likely to change after that race, but we will wait and see. Tune in as well to League Racing TV for the rest of the week. Divisions 2 and 3 of TTML run at 8 p.m. tomorrow. Divisions 4 and 5 run at 8 p.m. on Friday. TTML Division 1 is back next Tuesday at 8 p.m. for tune in to those. They are sure to be great races as well. But for myself and Luke, it is thank you very much for joining us once again for the EML League, the EML Teams League, and we will see you in a month's time for the finale. Goodbye.